You know, the greatest strategic failure is believing a large purchase requires a large pitch, this massive high-pressure sales effort. But what if the entire sales battle is won at the lowest friction point? In the world of digital ads, we're always told to just trust the machine. But let's be real, with all the data privacy changes happening, that trust is getting harder to maintain. The secret to unlocking some really explosive growth, it isn't just about the algorithm's power, it's about the quality of the data we feed it. So today, we're diving into Lookalike Logic, a strategy that completely flips the script on how we find new customers. And you're gonna see that the most powerful move you can make isn't finding more customers, but understanding your best ones on a much deeper level.
So here's our game plan. We're gonna start with a really surprising psychological truth called the selling paradox. Then we'll expose the one costly mistake that tanks most ad campaigns, what I call the generic seed problem. From there, we'll get to the good stuff, the elegant solution, the seed refinement loop. After that, we'll peek inside the mind of the machine to see how it really thinks. And don't worry, I'll give you a step-by-step scaling blueprint to put it all into action. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the single most important idea, how to properly feed the machine.
All right, let's jump right in. Now, to really get why this marketing strategy works so well, we actually have to forget about marketing for a minute. I know, sounds weird, but trust me, we have to start with a core principle of human psychology. It's this predictable little quirk in how our brains make decisions. And once you understand it, you can build some unbelievably effective systems for growth. And it all kicks off with just a single, small yes.
This really gets to the heart of it. We all tend to think that a huge decision, like say buying a car, needs an equally huge, convincing sales pitch. But the most powerful force in persuasion isn't some big, flashy gesture. Nope, it's our own internal need to be consistent. The moment we agree to something small, that tiny little yes, a powerful psychological switch gets flipped, and it makes that next, bigger yes feel almost automatic.
This is the classic foot-in-the-door technique, all based on the principle of commitment and consistency. Once you say yes to something small, maybe signing a petition or taking a free sample, you subtly change how you see yourself. You start thinking, hey, I'm the kind of person who supports this cause, or I'm the kind of person who uses this brand. And that creates this internal pressure to act in line with that new identity. So when the bigger request comes, like a donation or buying the full-size product, it doesn't even feel like a new choice. It just feels like the next logical step. It becomes, well, an inevitable conclusion. Now hang on to that idea, because we're about to see how this very human quirk is the secret to teaching a machine how to find your best customers.
So how in the world does this connect to advertising? Well, this is exactly where that brilliant psychological insight gets completely and totally lost. We're shifting gears now, from our brains to ad platforms, and this is where, no joke, millions of dollars are just set on fire every single day. So it's time to meet the villain of our story, the generic seed audience.
So what exactly is a generic seed? Well, think of it as the default setting. You know, the easy button. It's when you take a big, messy list, like every single person who's ever bought from you, or all your email subscribers, and you tell the ad platform, hey, go find me more people just like these. It sounds perfectly logical, right? But that one simple step is the #1 reason why most lookalike campaigns just plain fail.
And this analogy is perfect. The algorithms on platforms like Meta or Google are incredibly smart. They're like master chefs. They can cook up an amazing result with the right stuff. But if you give that master chef dirty, low quality, mixed up ingredients, the final dish is going to be terrible. It doesn't matter how great the chef is. You're poisoning the process from the very start. It's the oldest rule there is: garbage in, garbage out.
Let's look at this side by side. The common mistake is just dumping in a list of all purchasers. But think about who's in that list. You've got the one-time discount hunters, the people who returned the product, the person who bought a gift for someone else and will never come back. It's noisy. The strategic approach, on the other hand, is surgical. It zeroes in on only your absolute best customers, like the top 1% by lifetime value. You're not asking for more customers anymore. You're giving a crystal clear command: find me more people exactly like my most valuable ones. That tiny shift in instruction changes everything.
And here's what it means for your wallet. This isn't just theory, this is about your budget. When you use that generic seed, the algorithm gets confused. It struggles to find a clear pattern in all that noise, so your ads get shown to the wrong people, and your cost per acquisition, which you pay for a new customer, it just skyrockets. You end up paying way too much for mediocre results. But when you switch to a refined, high-quality seed, that algorithm becomes a heat-seeking missile. It knows exactly who it's looking for, and your CPA plummets. Your return on every dollar you spend goes through the roof.
Okay, so that brings us to the solution. Now that we know what the problem is, it's time to talk about the fix. This is the mechanism that unlocks the true power of these platforms, and this is the core of the whole strategy. It's all about moving away from a passive, set it and forget it approach to a really active, strategic one.
We call it the Seed Audience Refinement Loop. And that word loop is absolutely critical. This isn't something you set up once and walk away from. It's a constant process of getting better. It's about continuously feeding the algorithm a cleaner, stronger signal by carving out audiences based on the actions that prove they're going to be valuable in the long run. So think of it this way. You're not just handing over raw data anymore. You're providing curated intelligence. You're actively teaching the machine what a great customer actually looks like for your business. So how do we actually do this? Well, we get super specific. First, we segment by lifetime value, pulling out just the top spenders. Second, we look at retention. I mean, a customer who sticks around for more than 90 days is way more valuable than someone who cancels after a week, right? So we create a segment just for them. And third, we find customers who completed a magic number action. This is that key behavior that signals someone is truly hooked. Like for a social app, maybe it's adding 7 friends in their first 10 days. By layering these signals, we build a seed that models not just the first purchase, but the deep, proven tendency to become a loyal, long-term customer.
Okay, now this is where it gets really cool. Why does a refined seed work so much better? To get that, we need to take a peek inside the black box and talk about something I like to call algorithmic psychology. We're going to see how the machine actually thinks, and I'll give you a hint. It has almost nothing to do with demographics. It's way deeper than that.
The core process here is called behavioral clustering, and this is a total game changer from old-school marketing. Forget targeting people based on their age or gender or where they live. The algorithm is sifting through thousands of tiny digital breadcrumbs. The articles they read, the videos they watch, how fast they scroll, the time of day they're online. It uses all of that to group people based on shared psychological drivers, creating clusters of people who act alike, not just people who look alike on paper. I mean, no human could ever do this manually. It's just impossible.
So what kind of signals are we talking about here? It's pretty wild. The algorithm can figure out if a group of people responds better to new, shiny things versus things that are traditional and trusted. It can see if they're more motivated by the fear of missing out, that's loss aversion, than by the promise of a gain. It analyzes their content habits, how often they buy, even the time of day they're most likely to engage. It's building a deep psychological profile that is just light years more powerful than knowing someone's zip code.
And here's the magic. This all creates a powerful self-reinforcing loop. It's like an algorithmic confirmation bias. Once you give it that super clean seed of your best customers, it builds that detailed behavioral profile. Then it goes out and finds new people who are a perfect match. And when those new people convert, it tells the algorithm, yep, your profile was spot on. This makes it even more confident and even better at finding the next batch. The system literally gets smarter with every single dollar you spend. Okay, so we've covered the psychology, we've identified the problem, we've got the solution, and we've peeked under the hood. Now let's turn all this theory into an actual actionable blueprint. This is the how-to part. This is how you go from just understanding this stuff to really mastering it and getting scalable growth. It's a simple 3-step framework. Step 1, and this is the most important, define. You have to constantly define and update your high-quality seed segments based on real business metrics like LTV and retention. Step 2, exclude. You have to be ruthless about this. Actively remove anyone who could contaminate your data, existing customers, recent buyers, and especially those low-value, high-churn users. And finally, step 3, test. You have to structure your scaling with discipline. Start small, prove it works, then go big.
And that discipline test starts right here with this one number, 1%. When you build a lookalike audience, the platform gives you choices, 1%, 3%, 5%, and up. You always start with the 1%. This is the smallest, the most concentrated, and the most potent group. These are the people the algorithm is most certain are a match for your seed. This is your proving ground. This is where you validate that your model works before you even think about scaling.
Now, I know the temptation is to just jump straight to a huge audience. You have to resist that urge. You start with your 1% lookalike, you spend a small, controlled budget, and you confirm that your cost per acquisition is where you need it to be. Only after you have that hard proof, that data, do you start to scale out horizontally to the 3% audience and then the 5%. This disciplined approach means you stay profitable every single step of the way. This is how you scale based on data, not on hope.
And that brings us to our final section, and really the core takeaway from all of this. If you remember just one thing today, let it be this. After all the tactics and all the frameworks, everything boils down to one central strategic idea about how to work with these amazing algorithms instead of fighting against them.
So, what's the greatest secret to scalable growth? It's not about finding some new secret traffic source. It's not about buying more data. The highest leverage you have is already sitting in your own database. The treasure is already in your house. Your job is to be the treasure hunter, to strategically and constantly refine your own data, to pull out that pure signal of what makes your best customers tick. And then you hand that treasure map to the machine.
And to do this right, it requires a complete mindset shift. For decades, marketing has been obsessed with demographics, targeting people based on who they are on a census form. But in the age of machine learning, that's just obsolete. The new frontier is behavioral similarity, targeting people based on how they act. And that is an exponentially more powerful predictor of who will become your next best customer.
So this is the final thought I really want to leave you with. The best marketing today doesn't push people through a funnel, it pulls them toward value because it strategically feeds the machine its best fuel. When you do that, you're not just running ads anymore, you're building an intelligent, scalable system for growth.